Have you guys caught your breath yet? What a night in Oklahoma City. Unfortunately, the Celtics come up just a little bit short. We're going to recap all that. Plus, Happy New Year to everybody. We'll talk about our trip down to San Antonio, all that and more coming up next here on Green with Envy. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into a post-game edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? What a fun Tuesday night for the Boston Celtics. Even though it doesn't end the way you want to, it was still an exhilarating game out in Oklahoma City. Here to help me break it all down is my best friend, the coach of the podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. And coach of the Celtics, man, Joe Mazzulla had a heck of a game. That was a
Right?
lot of fun. Mazzulla made some great adjustments throughout the game, and excited to break it all down with you.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about our trip to San Antonio for New Year's in the second half of this. So stick around for that. But this game was just too good. So I feel like we just got to kind of get right into it. So let's talk about the Celtics and the Thunder from tonight in Oklahoma City. Unfortunately for the Celtics, they fall just short 127 to 123. Let's go ahead and we will start here with the Oklahoma City Thunder. So for the Thunder tonight, only one guy we really got to start with, SGA. 14 of 22 from the field, 36 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Josh Giddey, say what you will for all the off-court stuff. Plenty of those jokes flying around on Twitter tonight. 23 points for him, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Big number, 4 of 7 from 3. We'll talk more about that. Chet Holmgren, the quote-unquote potential rookie of the year. 14. This is a stat line I had to read twice. This is before we came on tonight. 14 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 blocks. Not your typical 7'1" stat line that you're going to get from a guy. But that's what we got from Chet Holmgren tonight. And then Jalen Williams, the one without a Y. Jalen Williams, the power forward here, 16 points, 3 steals, 2 blocks for him on 6 of 9 shooting. Let's go over to the Celtics. And let's start with the good. And the really, really good was Kristaps Porzingis. 12 of 18 from the field, 8 of 9 from the line, 34 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 blocks. Jason Tatum, 10 of 21 from the field, 30 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists, and 1 steal. Derek White, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Off nights tonight from Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday. Jaylen Brown, 15 points on only 4 of 18 shooting, 0 of 8 from the field. And then Drew Holiday, who we'll talk about his role in the fourth quarter or lack thereof, 2 of 8 from the field for him, 7 points, did have 5 rebounds and 7 assists. But ultimately, it was all about SGA and the Thunder tonight, Greg. People are kind of wondering how for real this team is. And honestly, coming into the season, I knew that they'd be improved. I thought everyone was a little bit overzealous in saying this is going to be a 50-plus win team, be a top 4 seed. I'm eating crow. I was wrong. This team's freaking awesome. They're so much fun. Take this where you want. We're going to get into your grades here, but if you want to start with any other comments on this game before we get to your grades, I want to give you a moment to go there because this game was awesome.
Let's start with the Celtics, man, because we can talk about SGA in a little bit. But one thing I want to point out, let's start with the good. Then we can talk about the bad and the very bad, and we go into my grades. But, when we got Porzingis in the offseason, I think it was for teams like this, right? Where you have these teams like the Indiana Pacers and the Thunder that last year I thought were like mirror images of each other, just one in the East and one in the West. And we've kind of seen that this year as well, with Halliburton being who Halliburton is and SGA becoming an MVP, like not an MVP candidate, an MVP. It's nice to have a Porzingis who can just take anybody in the post at any time and also cause a lot of problems for people around the rim. Now, what the Celtics ended up doing is they gambled in the third quarter and they put and they gambled throughout the night, but they put Porzingis on Josh Giddey, right? And Josh Giddey made us pay in that third quarter. I think Giddey had maybe 12, 15 points in that third quarter. And he was hitting threes all night. Porzingis was sagging off because the Thunder do such a good job pushing the pace and putting pressure on the defense, and everybody on their team is willing to drive, right? I said we were going to start with the good, but now I'm talking about the Thunder because I guess the Thunder were the good, right?
The Thunder were really, really good for like 95% of this game.
They were so good. And Porzingis was just awesome in this game, man. It was really good to see that proof of concept. Brad Stevens going out and getting him. It was a big trade in the offseason, and we've seen great stuff out of Porzingis. But tonight was really that apex Porzingis game. It so happens, when you're 7'3", sometimes those feet are a little big and you end up stepping on a line you don't mean to step on, because that killed the comeback, man. Like, it was such a great game. And then that 3-pointer where Tatum was money. Oh my God, Jason Tatum was so good in this game, and he hit Porzingis on the exact same pass he threw in the last possession, but Porzingis stayed in the corner.
He tried to get to originally, but then
exactly.
And also just real quick on that possession where Porzingis goes back out and gets it. How much fun was that? Just him versus Chet, where KP was getting into his bag with his pivot foot, and Chet was hanging with him, and then ultimately Chet commits the foul. Right. But that recovery was a fun matchup of those two, original unicorn versus the new unicorn that we saw, in small bits tonight.
Right. And, Porzingis, I can't even say I wish we went to him more, because he shot the ball 18 times and shot 9 free throws, right? We really took advantage of the Porzingis matchup. It's just like, down the stretch, it's so nice to see the Celtics, who had a horrible third quarter. They ended up playing a lot better in the fourth quarter, and it was really centered around Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, and Derek White, who were the 3 best players for the Celtics on the court tonight, like no question. But that fourth quarter, the ability for the Celtics to play pressure defense. We'll talk about Peyton Pritchard here in a second, but when they turned up the heat and Jason Tatum, decided the last 6 minutes of the game that he was guarding SGA, he completely took SGA out of the game. And then the Thunder just crumbled under the pressure, with Peyton Pritchard kind of being the head of the snake, picking up full court.
Yeah, it felt like in those last 6 minutes, and this is where, if I'm the Thunder, because the Thunder are so good, and like I said, we can talk more about them in a minute here, but I think they need to go make a move. They like this team's too good. Don't wait, because I feel like in those last 6 minutes, if this were a playoff series, I would have felt like, okay, I think we have an answer for what we do going forward. In a 1-game scenario, SGA can be so special that it just might not matter what your adjustments are. But it felt like in those last 6 minutes, the Celtics were kind of figuring out, even on a night where 2 of their top 5 were really off their game, that they were going to have some answers if this would be a series. And I think that's going to be an issue that OKC runs into when you get into a full-blown series, as opposed to a one-night game where anything can happen and Giddey goes 4 of 7 from 3, right? Like, I think that's where they're going to find. So I would say, for me, if I'm a Thunder fan, or I'm in the Thunder front office, this is proof of concept to me that, hey, we just need to be a little bit more versatile and a little bit more deep, so that we can kind of play that chess match that Drew Carter was talking about at an even higher level than what we can right now. And there's no reason that this team can't be in the mix, come June. But let's go to your grades here, Greg, and let's dig into it from that perspective to talk about this game, and then we can hit on as many angles as we want to go into.
Okay. So I have the grades pulled up here for those watching on Twitter and YouTube tomorrow, but I thought Tatum and Porzingis were the 2 best players on the court for the Celtics. SGA, I think, was probably the best player on the court overall. But I gave Tatum and Porzingis an A+, and Pritchard an A, Derek White an A-. Al Horford a B, Sam Hauser a C-, Brown a D, and Holiday an F. We can talk about how bad both of those guys were all game. But with Tatum, we've been waiting for the MVP Jason Tatum to come back. And we've been talking about how that's going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be those 50 balls. It's going to be the well-rounded performances where he puts up 30, 15, and 8. I don't know. What was his numbers again tonight, Will?
So he was 30, 13, and 8, 10 to 21 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, which I think, for me, I preferred seeing Jason be a little bit more selective on his 3-point shots. I know you highlighted some from our night in San Antonio. And then he got to the line 10 times. He was 8 of 10 from the line.
Yeah, and I think getting him at the nail and getting him in the mid post, and him being so much more decisive over the last couple of games, like tonight against a Thunder team that's so fast, so physical, and so athletic on the defensive end, you cannot hold the ball. You have to move the ball. You have to make the extra pass. You have to, play 0.5 basketball. And I thought Tatum did a really good job making the extra pass all night. Even that last the last 2 passes to Porzingis and the pass to Derek White, that was all from Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum we've been waiting to see the offense run through him. That's not just dribble, step back three. And we saw that a lot tonight. Him and Derek White running 2-man action, him and Kristaps Porzingis running 2-man action, and the three of them together. That's a fourth quarter offense that the Celtics are going to be able to go to over and over again, game after game. We saw it early in the season. We were so excited to have a 2-man game with JT and Porzingis, and we haven't really seen it down the stretch in a lot of games. A lot of times it's because the Celtics are blowing teams out. But tonight, it was a night where I thought Jason Tatum really started to show why, at the end of the day, as good as Jaylen Brown has been over the past month, like Jason Tatum's the MVP of this team, no questions.
Yeah, he's the go-to guy, and I really think, especially, it was funny. Of course, I tweeted about both of the Jays struggling towards the end of that first half with about 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, and then I think Jason Tatum scored 9 points in the last 2 minutes and 40.
But I didn't even think, I saw you tweet that out. I didn't even think he was struggling. I thought he was playing. I really liked how Tatum was playing even in the first half. I think the Thunder just, it takes a while to adjust to teams like that play so fast and so physical and that force you to play at their pace. And I think Tatum's physicality, I think he had 5 or 6 rebounds in the first quarter. And I forgot to text you and put this in the Discord, but the Tatum over on rebounds, this is the type of team that Jason Tatum is going to get rebounds against, right? And I was really good to see him play with such physicality and such force. We've already touched on Porzingis. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about Porzingis getting that A+? You don't want to move on to Pritchard?
We can move on. I just think this is the apex Porzingis game. This is the reason that you have a guy like Porzingis, and I think for certain matchups you just keep spamming it. And like you said, even when they weren't going directly to him in the nail, they were working off of what he was creating from being at the nail, right? All the eyes were on him. All the defense was sunk in, and that was opening up other opportunities. So I just think this was the perfect Kristaps Porzingis game.
Yeah.
He is 100% an A+. Let's go. You said you want to go to Peyton Pritchard next?
Yeah, just one last thing on Porzingis. Not even just like him being at the nail, but I thought his defensive pressure at the rim was great. And then also Scal did a good job pointing this out, but they realized pretty early on that Holmgren was going to be a problem for them if he was able to hang around the rim. And they did a lot of good things, just moving Porzingis around, putting him in different spots so that Holmgren, he was covering Porzingis, especially in that second half, and he had to stay away from the basket, which, allowed the Celtics to get to the rim whenever they wanted to. And then Holmgren at the end, he decided, you know what? I have to go. And that's when Tatum made the passes that he needed to make. But Pritchard, man. So, in this game, Pritchard got an A, Holiday gets an F. So let's talk about the fourth quarter adjustment where Drew Holiday, I don't know if it was the elbow. I saw him shaking out his arm a little bit early in the game, but he couldn't dribble. He couldn't shoot. He couldn't defend. He couldn't do anything tonight. This was the worst we've seen Drew Holiday play. And we've heard, from Bucks fans that this happens from time to time where Drew just no-shows in big games. And this was the first time, which is a little concerning. We'll keep monitoring that. But it was great to see when Holiday was so bad that Peyton Pritchard stepped up and that Mazzulla had the
big balls on Mazzulla to go make that move tonight. I was I was actually thinking because Holiday had just been so bad to that point. I was originally expecting it to be Horford getting the call, and they were going to say, hey, let's lean into just being bigger than them, right? And let's try to get second chances. And SGA was just cooking everybody. So, even if Al gets out there on him, like, who wasn't SGA cooking? Well, Tatum, really, until the end, right? But the Pritchard move caught me a little bit by surprise, but it was 100% the right move, and Pritchard earned it too.
Yeah, he was great. We were worried about him early in the year because he was doing little things like offensive rebound. He was grinding and gritting his way through the shooting slumps. But those winning plays that we saw out of rookie year Peyton Pritchard before he hurt his knee, where we were saying like Marcus Smart better watch out because, this kid Peyton Pritchard is looking pretty good. And this is the night where Drew Holiday, you better watch out some games where Peyton Pritchard, is able to step in. It's not even Drew Holiday watch out. It's just, it's nice to see Peyton Pritchard reach the point where if somebody else on the team isn't playing well, he's able to step up and step in. And I think part of the reason why Pritchard was able to play well against the Thunder and Holiday kind of struggles is Pritchard probably has the best handle on the team. Straight up handle on the team. And I think the Thunder, because they're so handsy, the refs let them get away with murder tonight. That's a whole nother thing. I was looking up at the sky like Tommy Heinsohn, can we call in here? The refs were, letting the Thunder really be physical, really be handsy, which did not play well for Holiday, and it did not play well for Jalen, who struggled against that physicality, against the handsiness. But Pritchard has tight handle. He's always able to control that, and he's a dog on defense, man. This is something that I've been maintaining since Pritchard's first year in the league. I said that he reminds me a lot of Fred VanVleet, the way that he can grind on the defensive end. He's got a little Kyle Lowry in him as well. And it's nice to see Pritchard earn the trust of Mazzulla and be out there for the entire fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, tonight was an example of why, as we look to what, if anything, do the Celtics need to do to upgrade this roster. The fact that Pritchard can be a guy that Mazzulla looks at and says, hey, Drew Holiday, who's a defensive player of the year candidate, who's been in, a two-time All-Star, I'm going to play you over him the last 6 minutes of this game because you're playing the better game tonight and you're a better fit for what we're doing right now. Like, this isn't always going to be the case for Pritchard, because there's going to be matchups where it's not good for Pritchard, and this does kind of play into Peyton Pritchard. But the fact that you can do that against a team that's as good as the Oklahoma City Thunder gives me plenty of confidence that I don't necessarily think in that third guard or backup guard, whatever role you want to define Peyton Pritchard as, that it really needs to be upgraded, and that he's totally suitable as the guy in that role.
Right. And it's also good to think about like who the Celtics might have to go through if we make it to the finals, and just think about the teams that Peyton Pritchard could play against. When you think about the Thunder, I think that's a good matchup for Pritchard. But then you go into a team like the Nuggets. If the Nuggets make it out of the West, then I don't think Pritchard really is going to be able to hang with a team with that much size. And Jokic,
T-Wolves are probably in that same category.
Right. And that's where having Drew is going to come into play. Exactly. But against a team like the Thunder, I thought it was really interesting to see Pritchard play so well, because if the Celtics do decide, Pritchard, I think, is earning his spot on this team. And I don't think the Celtics really need to make that upgrade if he's going to continue to play this well. But if they were to trade Pritchard, I think the only guy out there that I would want to go get is Caruso, because then you can go to a small lineup where you go Holiday, White, Caruso, Brown, and Tatum, and maybe that's a lineup you could throw out there that some teams like the Thunder would struggle to play well against, But Pritchard, I'm really impressed with him, man. It was awesome to see him earn Mazzulla's trust, and it was great to see Mazzulla have the balls to do that, because he could have played Horford, he could have played Holiday, and he went with Pritchard.
Yeah, those were the safe choices. And honestly, I think Horford would have been a fine call, right? Because Horford played a good game tonight, and I think there are advantages that you could utilize with that double big lineup. I mean, ultimately, I think where this game, certainly on the fringes, this game was lost in a few spots, but really that 6-minute stretch to start the fourth, when there was no SGA, no Chet, and that second unit of the Thunder held up, that's where the game was lost. Dude, right? That's when you had to be perfect those last 12 minutes, and where Porzingis's big toe being on the line ended up being the difference, because you had no margin for error at that point.
When we came out with the lineup that was on the court, I can't remember exactly who the five was, but it was Holiday and Brown who had been horrible.
And they were awful in those first 2-3
Oh my God, dude. Quarter. And I was like, oh, so we're running the offense through the two guys that have been the worst players on the court for the Celtics tonight. Yeah. Like, that's how we're starting this fourth quarter, when Holmgren and SGA are on the bench.
And we got Luke out there. I don't know if Al, I think
I think the lineup was Holiday, Brown, Pritchard, Cornette, and Horford. I think that was the lineup that we started the fourth quarter with. And I just immediately shook my head. Like, Mazzulla was great tonight. That was a horrible decision. That was one of the worst lineups they could throw out there.
And it's weird. It had me, I was thinking about this as well. Like, we've talked so much recently about how he pairs, White and JB, right? And pairs Holiday and Tatum. But in this moment, and White had started to get, I guess White started to really get cooking later on in the fourth, but even still, he's been so good as of late. He was still, even if he wasn't Superman at Derek White up until later on in the fourth, like, I would still rather him out there than Drew Holiday and keep that chemistry together.
He had it took a while for the Celtics to adjust to the pace of the game, right? And to the physicality of the game. Holiday and Brown really never found it. Jalen sort of started to figure it out in the fourth quarter. Not really. Holiday never figured it out. Derek White had it figured out by the second half, right? And I think that was the difference. It was Tatum, Porzingis, White, and Pritchard were the guys that really had figured out the game and figured out how to thrive in that game. And that's why that comeback was great. And then, JB didn't do much in the fourth quarter. That one missed free throw was bad, but 3 for 4.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
3 for 4 from the line, I guess I'll take it.
You rarely see a free throw miss short and off to the right side of the rim.
I thought after he made the 2 free throws when he got fouled on the dunk that he was at least gonna like back rim the free throw, but man, I'm still not comfortable with JB at the line in the fourth quarter.
I mean,
in big moments.
You saw him at least what I interpret as him overthinking his shot. He had a wide open 3 on the left wing at one point.
He didn't have it tonight.
And you saw the deep knee bend. Like you could just tell, like everything about him is just overthinking the shot right now rather than just going up with that release. And that's just like, you got to leave him out there. But that was, because we've seen JB have horrible nights and then all of a sudden hit 2 massive threes at the end of the game. So
and he was still grinding. I thought JB. The reason why I didn't give JB an F is I thought he actually played pretty good defense. He had one really big mistake in the fourth quarter where he didn't box out. I think it was Lou Dort, and Lou Dort came in for an offensive rebound tip in.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was a pretty big mistake, but I thought he actually did a really good job in the first half, shutting down SGA the last 6 minutes of that first half. I thought that was my call at halftime. I thought we should have put Jalen on SGA. And we didn't do it. We stayed with Holiday, and Holiday just got cooked all night. There are a couple guys that I've seen. It's interesting actually. So SGA is like I like Scal's comparison. He called him like the 6'6" Tony Parker, which was kind of nice. But he also kind of plays that herky jerky style that Pascal Siakam plays. Like they kind of just have limbs flying everywhere. Obviously, SGA is a way better player than Pascal, but in terms of 2 guys that Holiday can't guard, he can't guard Siakam, and he apparently cannot guard SGA. So, and they kind of have this unorthodox herky jerky style that they play at a pace that's just different than other guys. And Holiday really struggled with it.
Let's talk about SGA and the Thunder for a second before we wrap this game up and go to kind of our New Year's wishes and resolutions. Dude, SGA, and I've watched a fair amount of Thunder game because they're so much fun, right? They're a blast. I think we knew that definitively going into the season that this was going to be a league pass team. This is going to be a team that everybody wanted to watch, and they've definitely exceeded. I think even those that thought this team was going to be like a 50-win team and be a night, like I think they're exceeding those expectations, right? Like they're even going one step above that. And tonight, watching SGA do what he did to the Celtics, it was crazy to me because I would sit there watching him play against whether it's the Rockets, the Pacers, I don't know, whatever other team I've watched him in the NBA. I'm like, man, SGA he's just pretty amazing. But like, I don't know if he's not gonna be able to do all of this against a team like us that has size, that has length, that has 2 of the best perimeter defenders in the entire league. You would think about to like go up against him. And just mincemeat, dude. Just 14 of 22, three when he's hitting threes too. He's like nearly unstoppable. Somehow he missed 3 free throws tonight, which never happens. He shoots 92% from the line and just did everything tonight. And like you said at the beginning, he's not just an MVP candidate. He's maybe the MVP right now.
Right. And I think SGA, what White and Holiday do such a good job of is being physical and always like kind of being around the play, especially Derek White. The moment you think he's out of the play, he's still in there and blocking your shot. Holiday relies on his physicality and his ability to anticipate and cut you off when, nobody really blows by Drew Holiday in a first step, and SGA was by him the entire night. What SGA does sort of struggle with is against the longer guys like Jason Tatum, as we saw in the fourth quarter, against the Jaden McDanielses of the world. So it is good to think about, should the Celtics play the Thunder in the finals? We did see some things that we might be able to go to, down the stretch, putting Tatum on SGA. Maybe you start the game with Brown on him earlier in the game, and then you continue to make that bet that Josh Giddey's not going to
100%. Yeah, I think if I were to look at this as a series, I think the Celtics figure it out. I think the Celtics would I would feel pretty confident. Like I said, those last 6 minutes, especially when you factor in that JB couldn't hit a shot, Drew Holiday played maybe his worst game of the year, that if this were a series, the Celtics would figure this out. And I would feel very confident that they would win this. And I think ultimately for Oklahoma City, I don't think they have quite enough versatility when it comes to a 7-game series. If they're going to play the T-Wolves, if they're going to play the Nuggets, if maybe even the Lakers, depending on what they look like. Like, I think those are all teams that could be trouble for the Thunder in a 7-game series. If they, in a 1-game scenario, they'll be fine. And like you said, you're going to bet every time that Josh Giddey's not going to go 4 for 7. This kind of happened last year. I was thinking back to they made the play-in last year, right? And they beat the Pelicans in the first game, and Josh Giddey went off because they basically they did like the Steph Curry in college, where it was like, we're putting 2 on SGA and you got to beat us some other way. And SGA hit a couple, Giddey hit a couple of threes. He scored like 35 points. The next night, they played the T-Wolves. The T-Wolves won and went on to the playoffs. So I think the Thunder are awesome. I think they're going to probably be the 2 seed, 3 seed. Maybe they'll be the 1 seed. I don't know. They're that good in the regular season. But I think there's a lot of matchups over a 7-game series if they don't make a move that are going to, that are going to force them, at least in the offseason, then to go make those moves. But I think they can make them now, and I think they should.
They need to upgrade they need to upgrade the Dort spot, in my opinion. I like Lou Dort, but I think that you can upgrade there for sure.
And you need more size, man. I mean, like, as much as they fought through it tonight, like I said, it was wild watching when you have Al Horford and KP out there, and their front line was the 2 Jalen Williams and Kendrick Williams, the Williamses.
Man,
right?
I like Jalen Williams. The one,
no, I like all of them.
But I'm just saying, like, Jalen Williams was great. In the fourth quarter, he's the guy that won the game for them. When Tatum took SGA out of it, J-Dub was the one who came in. He drove it. Tatum, he had a fadeaway on Brown as well, and he was great all night. He's such a good defender as well. But one thing I was thinking about for the Thunder is who is another big that they can go get that isn't necessarily, maybe they don't have to give up a Giddey, because I hear the Thunder, a lot of big NBA podcasts talking about like trading Josh Giddey because he hasn't played that well this year, and obviously the problematic behavior. But I think
and the issue of having to pay him if you're already going to pay Chet, Jalen, and you maybe can do something else. But
yeah, like a beef stew. I think he's been
beef
already
stew's
rumored.
A perfect fit.
Beef stew would be great there. And then what I was thinking, dude. Like, I don't think he's like a really good player for most teams. But the way that the Thunder, this is not a big guy, but the way that the Thunder play ball and how spaced out it is, and how like almost European the style can get at times. Evan Fournier is just sitting there on the Knicks bench. They're doing nothing. They need a little bit more shooting. They need a little bit more size. Fournier is like 6'7". He's like kind of a big guy. He's doing nothing for the Knicks. They probably wouldn't really have to give up anything to get him besides, do you feel comfortable giving up Lou Dort for Evan Fournier? I don't know if you do.
Yeah, definitely don't. You do not do that.
Yeah, no. But maybe there's like some way if the Knicks buy out Evan Fournier, then
the Thunder have Davis Bertans sitting there. It was like it would just be basically
Davis Bertans sucks, dude. Davis Bertans.
No. I'm saying you trade him for Evan Fournier. I'm saying their salaries match up. I'm not saying play him. I'm saying they're keeping Davis Bertans because that's the guy that gets them to any $20 to $30 million guy they want to do. Is Davis Bertans is there.
I thought you were drawing a comparison between Evan Fournier and Davis Bertans. Like, oh no, Fournier, because Fournier can do a little bit.
They're both sitting. This season they're both sitting doing the exact same.
The thing is, Fournier, like when you see him in FIBA, he balls out and he plays well. Yeah, so that's why when I was watching the game tonight, I was like, would Fournier actually like be okay for this team? Because of the way
it does feel like Fournier should be playing and like just doing something more. Like he's
maybe for the Kings.
He's more than what he's getting on the Knicks. I don't know. I don't want to turn this into an Evan Fournier podcast. Nobody wants to hear that or rehash the Evan Fournier time with the Celtics. So we'll move on from that. But Thunder, they're exciting, man. Fun night, tough loss. I think, like you said, the Porzingis toe on the line that killed any hope. You had to be perfect those last 6 minutes after you lost ground. Never mind trying to gain ground in the beginning of that fourth quarter. That ultimately was the killer. But I think Celtics found some positives to take away at the end of that game. So we'll see. They got a tough stretch coming up here. So they're going to be heading back home for one game on Friday night against Utah. Then they got 2 games in Indiana, Minnesota, Milwaukee in a back-to-back. Ime returns the next Saturday with Houston. Then you get a little bit of a break with Toronto and San Antonio before they play Denver. But that's a pretty tough week right there. Utah's on a streak. Indiana twice. Minnesota, Milwaukee. Ime returns. Big week and a half or so coming up here for the